Continuing in my series this is the week of August 17th, 2026, where I review different yoga poses and break down the anatomy behind each pose and how to apply it to your cues. Today we're going to take a look at half moon, and this is a question that was submitted by one of the teachers in my program, Stacy. So hi Stacy if you're watching this. And it's a really good question. It's about half moon. And we started out the conversation looking at the position of the standing leg. And one of the things that she was noticing in her classes was that a lot of students were turning out the bottom foot. So what that can look like when you're teaching is you have someone in the pose, but their turning in. So you have somebody in the pose, but their bottom foot is turned in. So the first thing to think about is what anatomical action is happening that I don't want to happen. And keep in mind, every yoga pose has a particular shape, and the shape is just defined by years and years of doing the pose in that particular way. Now, of course, you can intentionally change the shape of a pose, but that's something that you're doing. We basically all agree that these yoga poses have a particular template for each pose that defines the shape. And with the shape, there are certain anatomical actions. Now, this particular hip defines what's happening with the foot. And when you look at somebody who's in half moon with the bottom foot turned in, that means that hip is internally rotating. Instead of having a bit of external rotation, just enough so that the bottom foot is straight. And so you can first just teach to the shape. You know that bottom foot should be straight. You see the person has the foot turned in. You know that's internal rotation. You know you want them to correct it so the foot is straight. Therefore, you want them to create a bit of external rotation. So you can simply say, straighten your bottom foot. You need, though, in this particular pose, and really in all poses, but here in particular, because it's a pretty hard posture. It's a standing balance. And there's another aspect of this pose that's going to define what that bottom foot is doing, and that's the position of this upper leg. Because this upper leg is in the air and the student can't see it, if that leg is not in the right spot so that they can stay balanced, they will do other things that brings them out of alignment to compensate so that they don't fall out of the pose. So for instance, if you have somebody in the posture and their leg in the air starts to wander and they feel unsteady, one of the first things they'll do is turn this foot in to try to find their balance. So this is why you need to be looking at the whole posture, cueing to various body parts so that you can help them create better balance. And furthermore, this leg in the air needs to be really steady so that they can have it stable and the bottom foot straight. Now, this hip is also an external rotation. So the external rotators of the hip are on the posterior hip muscles like the piriformis, the obturators, the gemellis. And the muscle that does internal rotation is the tensor fascia lata, which is on the lateral aspect of the hip. Now, both knees are in extension, which is a function of the quadriceps. So lastly, one thing you can say is press back through the heel to engage your quads. And that's a formula that I created to help you share anatomy in your cues. First, you look at the pose. You cue them with 2 or 3 action cues to get them in the posture. And then you speak to one of the muscles, concentrically contracting to create a particular joint movement. This is exactly what I teach inside my program, the Yoga Anatomy Accelerator, and the link for that is in my bio. So I hope you found this helpful. If you'd like to have me review a particular yoga pose, just leave it in the comments.